Hey, this is Flatlander Mike coming to you from Saskatchewan, Canada, and I just got my tracks in. I picked them up today in Yorkton from my dealer, and they're Camso X4S, which are a little bit smaller than the 4S ones, but they will fit both ATVs and UTVs. So all you need to do would be to get an adapter kit for the specific vehicle. Anyway, we're going to unbox these. There's lots of stuff in here. It's pretty heavy. They give you a new wheel nuts by the looks of it. And we got spacers. A couple of wheel spacers. And we've got A-arm brackets. Looks like limits for turning limits. Another wheel spacer. I didn't realize it needed wheel spacers, but that is what I get. So there we have all that stuff, and the box is empty. Comes with an installation guide. Read it. There's lots of good information in there. As soon as I'm done the intro, I am going to read it myself. Got a knife here. While I'm unpacking stuff, I'm going to give you a little bit of my background here. I am not an ATV mechanic. In fact, up until a year ago, I've never even driven an ATV. So, but I do have a mechanical background. I'm actually a journeyman auto mechanic, which for you guys in the States means you have a ticket that you went through your apprenticeship, and you have a license to work on automobiles. I spent 21 years doing that, and I said that's enough. And then I went, opened myself a handyman business. So I went into renovations and all kinds of good stuff. So I learned a lot there. And then we moved to Saskatchewan. This was in Alberta, which is one province away for some of you that don't know, to the west of us. So then I moved to Saskatchewan and couldn't really get much work here as a handyman, so I happened to go to my local marine dealer, and which is Kevin's Marine here in the valley, and it just happened that they were looking for a rigger, and I had spent about a year and a half rigging in Edmonton. So they hired me right away, and I was there for the last, for about 13 years on and off. And I just retired about a year and a half ago. Just got too hard on the body, couldn't do it anymore. So anyway, I purchased this ATV, or this UTV, this Viking, and I've been having lots of fun. If you go on, see my other one, video of installing a enclosed cab, building it from scratch, you'll enjoy it. I've got a few views so far. So we're going to start by doing some lubricating of nuts and bolts and try and figure out what's going on. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we've got it all unboxed. We've got some wheel spacers here. We have the control in the front, control arm brackets, and we have rear brackets, control arm brackets. A bunch of wheel nuts, So we'll find out where they go. It does come with this really, really good installation guideline for Camso Tracks, Camoplast. So it's going on a 2014 Viking, just a 3-seater. These tracks are built, they're X4S, they're a new product from Camso, and they're built for ATVs and UTVs, light UTVs. 700cc or smaller, and 3-seater and smaller. So that means that the 6 will be too heavy for these tracks. So they're a little bit smaller than the 4S1s, and a little bit narrower, a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter. So a little shorter. But for what I'm using it for, they should work really well. I just go to the lake. This year we've had lots and lots of snow, so I've been having trouble getting out ice fishing. And hopefully the season's just about over. I'm going to be able to go out, and I'm going to make some money pulling shacks in because a lot of people can't get on the ice. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put a little bit of this stuff on all the bolts. It's anti-seize, and it will not allow the bolt to undo the nut. So what I'm going to do is just going to put a little bit on all the nuts and bolts. And what that's going to do is allow these self-locking nylock bolts to go on really nice. And they're going to slip. Instead of wrecking the nylon, they're going to slip on there a little bit, but still allow it to lock. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do all them. I actually went ahead and did them all. These are for the front ones, I believe. That's this. Large ones are for the rears. They go through. Bolt on. And then here we have steering limiter. So I'm going to put a little bit on here too, because they're going to be screwed into these aluminum blocks. And we want to make sure that we don't mess up the aluminum and screw up the threads. These little aluminum blocks look expensive. So we're going to just screw that in there. There's an arrow on here. But before I put these on, I'm going to look through the manual and I'm going to make sure I've got them on right. I've never done this before. In fact, within a year ago, I had never even driven a UTV or an ATV. So this is all new to me. And we're going to put a little bit on here. Now these nylock nuts, they've got a little bit of nylon around here for anybody that's not too familiar with them. And that locks the nut onto the threads. Now when I was in school, my auto teacher said, do not use an impact on nylon nuts, because what happens is it spins it so fast that it heats up the nylon and then it loses its grip. So it actually melts the nylon. So I do not use impacts on nylon nuts. So anyway, so now we're going to get the machine over here and we're going to start installing the tracks. We're going to jack it up, and a couple things I have to do before we get started, but be right back. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to break the wheel nuts loose on the back. I'm going to start with the back. You notice I did not use the rear impact. The last thing I need is to screw up the stud spreads. I'm over an hour away from the nearest dealer, and this is Saturday, and there's no open until Monday. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jack it up. I don't want to jack it far enough. And I'm going to have about 5 inches or so. Okay. I'm going to put jack stands under it. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to put oil into the bearings. This is recommended by Camso, and that's to stop water from infiltrating the bearings. The oil will actually soak it up, so I'm just using 80-90, it's actually semi-synthetic, and I'm going to put in 5 cc's. Now the video I saw from ATV Tracks said 10, and by the time I put 10 in here, I think that's way too much, so I'm going to put 5 in. This is a little infuser that you use. I bought it from the dollar store for $1.25. It infuses flavors into meat, so that's all I use, and then I just tuck it into the bowl, into the container there, sucked it up, and I've got 5 cc there right now, or 5 milliliters, the same thing. So what I did was, I'll just show you, this was in, it's just a rubber cap. So I have this little thing called a pick. We use it in the mechanics trade for popping out seals and stuff. I'm going to kind of put that in there, careful not to put a hole in it, and I'm just going to pop it out. And I'm going to squeeze in the 5 cc's into that cavity. And then I'm going to just pop this cap back on. Now there's going to be air in there, so what I do is I stick this along the side to allow the air to come out, push it down, push the middle down, and then just pop it in. And then it won't be popped out, and it won't come off because the suction holds it in there. So I've already done all the rest of them. I've done all 4 tracks. I just got these tracks today, and we'll continue with the video. So we had a bit of a malfunction with the audio here, so I'm going to just describe what we did. We have to pull this bolt out of the strut, and we're going to put it in the bracket, because once you put the bracket on, it's really hard to get that bolt in. So we're going to put a little bit of stuff on the end of it, anti-seize, and then we're going to put it in the bracket. So we got to make note of where the spacers go. Should be a spacer on the bottom. Okay, so I'm putting a little bit of anti-seize on the bolt here, and then put it in the bracket. Right, next, you have to take the bolt out of the steering knuckle on the bottom, because there's a new bolt that goes in there, and it was really tight, so I had to use the 1/2-inch drive on it to get it out. So once we break it loose, a couple of turns out, it comes off pretty easy. just have to find the right wrench. So that bolt just slides out. Sometimes you got to lift the knuckle a little bit, and it just comes right out and drops right back down. So next we're going to put the bracket on and make sure the bolt is in that hexagon in there. That stops it from turning, so you don't have to get a wrench in there. So just line up the bolt holes, and you're probably going to have to lift the knuckle up a little, yeah, and then slide that bolt through. That's the new bolt, and we're going to put the nut on it and put it on a little ways, just snug it up a little bit. You want it loose though, because the next step is we're going to put another small bolt in on the end, and that'll hold the bracket in tight up against the control arm. So I'm going to save that bolt later in case we take the tracks off and upgrade to a new side-by-side. Ha ha ha. Like that's going to happen. Instructions are pretty clear. You just got to follow step by step. So we're going to snug that bolt up in the knuckle. It's quite long, so but don't let that worry you. For some reason it's made that way. So now there's a little 6mm bolt. We have a flat washer, and it goes through that hole in the end and then screws into a nut, 6mm nut that's welded on the inside. So we're going to just tighten that right up. That's a 10mm. You don't want to over tighten it, it's just a small bolt, so but you want it snug, pretty snug. You want to hold that bracket in place. So I'm just using a 1/4" ratchet. Okay, then we're going to put another flat washer on top of it, and then a self-locking nut on top of that, and we're going to snug that down to hold it, stop it from coming out. This is so much easier than trying to video it. So it kind of helps if you hold get the nut down there. I had to use a wrench on it. If you hold the bolt on the bottom with the socket and then tighten it down with the nut, you don't want it to turn back out before it gets tight. So there so I'm going to stick that back on there just to hold it. And just snug it up so it doesn't fall out. So now next we got to tighten that knuckle bolt, and we're going to torque that. Oop. You can tell I'm out of practice a bit. Okay, so now we're going to torque it to specs. Keep those instructions handy. Lots of good information. the wrong socket. This thing seems to be half metric, half standard. Well, no, maybe not even half, but so you make sure you got a good supply of different sockets, metric sockets. Click, click, click. Okay, so now we're going to put the wheel on. We've already got the spacer on. Make sure you put a little bit of anti-seize on the wheel studs. Got to remember that you're torquing onto the plastic sprocket there. So part of the problem is lining it up. Actually I had to measure across the wheel, the studs, and then match them up on the sprocket to figure out which, because there's 3 sets of holes. I had a little trouble on the back because I couldn't turn the hub at all. And I realized I had it in 4-wheel drive, so I actually put it in 2-wheel drive, and now I was able to turn it a little bit easier. So this is probably the hardest part of the whole job, I think. So you got to get it lined up. And if you're really strong, you can just grab it and lift it up and put it on, but yeah, or a little mini jack or something that would. I tried the floor jack, putting it under, and it wasn't jacked up high enough, and the floor jack was too high. The track was too high, so I ended up putting a 4x4 under it, and I could kind of pivot it back and forth. If you had a couple of people, it would probably be a lot easier. I know they show that on one of the videos I watched with the installation. They had 2 guys, and one on each side, and they just lift it up and put it on. Look, it was nothing. They're not quite as heavy as 4S ones. The X4S, I think they're probably around 60 pounds, 55, 60 pounds each. Still hefty, but I'll get it yet. Just kind of shows you that things aren't always as easy as they show you on the internet. There, I think I got it. There it goes. Okay, so now we're going to put the nuts on. And put them all on equal. Snug them down with a ratchet. The nuts are tapered, so they fit into a tapered hole, and that centers them, just like a car. Sometimes you got to turn the track a little bit, move it just to get them started. Fingers aren't quite as nimble as they used to be. So we're just going to snug them up, and then we're going to set the torque wrench to 40. Now I'm going to phone Camoplast on Monday, that's tomorrow, and I'm going to check that torque, because it doesn't seem like very much. I actually ended up torquing them to 50 just to be more safe, but if they say it's only 40, I'll go back and I'll loosen them all and retorque them to 40. So sometimes a little pain getting them all lined up so you can access them all. Just give them a little shot there. Just recheck that torque again. It just doesn't seem like very much. But you gotta remember that we're torquing a plastic sprocket onto that hub, so that quite possibly it is 40. So. It's a little hard to get at sometimes. Gotta turn the hub a little bit. There. Just when I realized I put it in, it was in 4-wheel drive. So we've just popped it in 2-wheel drive. And you can actually turn that hub a little bit better. Yeah. So. You just recheck the torque. Make sure I got them all. Okay. So that part's done. Okay. So the next part here is we're on the back still. Is we're going to put the anti-rotation strut onto the bolt that goes through the bracket. So it's a little bit of a tight fit. Make sure you put your spacer on first, and then put the ball through it. You have to kind of lift the track up so it reaches. And you'll probably drop the spacer a few times. Oh, there's once. There's another spot where another person would help. He could lift the track up. But managed to do it. You just have to be a little persistent. So you can see the bolt is kind of lifted up out of the bracket there, right there. And so you just kind of gotta guide that hole there. No, bolt drop down. Make sure it's on the inside of the bracket. Make sure that hex of the bolt is in there, the little keeper there. So then you put another spacer on the bottom and a washer, and we're gonna tighten that up. So because it's got a hex on the bracket, you don't have to put a wrench on it and hold it. So there is a torque value on that too. so that part is all finished, so your truck is on. Now the first thing you got to do is take these protectors off the front. That's for your universal boots, CV joint. So it's just two 6mm bolts, 10mm head. And of course we're going to save everything. Starting to get a little tired. We're dragging on 4:30. 3 hours, just about. 2.5, 3 hours. Take that off. Okay, next we're going to take off this bolt off here. I don't remember what side bolts there. 15 and 17. You have to put this bolt in first into the bracket. Once you put that bracket on, you can't get this bolt in because it's comes up to the ball joint. So we'll put a little anti-seize on there. I'm going to put that into there. And now we're going to put it on the roller control arm. So you just bring it up so it's straddling that. Then you got a little tab on here. You can see that. That fits into a slot. Okay. Put the bolt in. I put the bolt in through the bottom. Nut. Second bolt. Okay. 15, I think, set up for that. Could be wrong. Oh. So I'm going to tighten them down. Once again, I'm using wrenches by hand. I'm not using an impact. I don't want to mess up those nylon bolts. There's a torque spec on this, but I'm going to just tighten it down. And after I put a couple of kilometers on it, trip out to the lake or so and back, I will check all the nuts and bolts to make sure everything's tight. Wheel nuts. Okay, so we got that right. So now we're going to mount this on. This is the hardest part. I got one on. Turn it a bit. Oh, I'm in the wrong hole. Nope. There it goes. Okay. Use the small wheel nuts that are supplied with the track kit. I'm going to get one started here. Okay, just snug them down with the ratchet.
It's like the good old days working on cars.
Yeah. Most guys use impacts now, but like I said, you don't want to mess up threads on a stud. With tomorrow being Sunday and the nearest dealer is over an hour away. Okay, so now we're going to torque that. $40 foot-pounds it says. There. One. Two. A little bit. 4. And I'm going to give it 50. I have to check with my dealer. 40 seems a little bit light to me, but remember we're torquing onto plastic or nylon. Just that little bit more. There we go. Okay, so the last part is putting the strut on. And I did the other side and it was a real pain, so I'm going to try and lift this up. Oop.
Can't hold it.
Oh, down, down.
You want to turn it or?
I don't know. I'm not straight. Oh. What you got to do is get this bolt into this. There. Okay, can you lift it maybe? Whoa, whoa, too far. Let it back down. Oh,
Is it
that is
an
not
angle
fun.
thing or?
I don't know if that'll help or not. I doubt it. I think you moved the camera. Okay, push it down. Oh. Cannot move it. The other ones all went really good. Wow. Maybe.
Oh, yeah, looks like it's lined up.
Okay, push it down. Oh. Almost. Oh. Okay, push down. Push, push, push. Okay, whoop. I guess it probably go there it goes. Probably be easier if I just took it out. Okay, spacer, washer, nut. Okay, and you want to make sure that the bolt is in, which is probably not. So I'm going to get the nut started so it doesn't come out. Okay, there it goes. Yeah. We'll just tighten this up. There we go. All right.
Need the torque thing?
No. Oop.